Hi, I'm Timothy Fowler, Professional Development Director with the New York State Network for Youth Success. And today I'm going to talk to you about how to do a virtual quality self-assessment using the quality self-assessment tool, especially when you can't get your team together to have an in-person meeting. How can I do this process when we're all separate, we're unable to get together, whether due to a pandemic lockdown or just because it's difficult to get anyone's schedule compared? We want to thank a couple of our sponsors for making this possible. The Office of Children and Family Services and the Western New York COVID-19 Community Response Fund, thank you for your support. This is what the QSA tool looks like in its print version. You can download it as a PDF from our website or as a spreadsheet, and I'll be featuring the spreadsheets in this description, this video as we go on. This is a free tool. It is easily used by anyone, anywhere. We just ask that you don't make any changes to it and you attribute it to the Network for Youth Success. The cycle of improvement is essentially, at its simplest, 3 steps. You assess your program, you make a plan for improvement, and then you implement your plan. For purposes of this video, we're going to focus on the assessment and then touch on the planning. The Quality Self-Assessment tool addresses 11 different indicators of program quality. So you can see that this is a very comprehensive list. The Quality Self-Assessment, or QSA, is meant to be used at a location where youth are served. And you can see that it covers a lot of ground. It talks about the frontline staff and what they do in terms of number 3, relationships with youth, number 5, programming and activities, and number 7, the youth participation and engagement in their own growth and development. But the QSA also addresses things that are really relevant behind the scenes. For example, number 2, the administration and organization of the program, as well as number 10, measuring outcomes and evaluations. So the QSA can be a comprehensive look at your program and what's going well and where you may need to improve. Self-assessment is a low-stakes way to find out what's going on in your program and make changes. It's really about taking stock of what's working and what is not. Self-assessment is very powerful because no one knows the program better than the people who care about it, those stakeholders who are directly involved, and that includes the frontline staff, the supervisors, the youth themselves, parents who are served by the program, as well as other partners. Bringing those folks together to strengthen the site can be a very positive experience. And really, self-assessment is about quality improvement, because a poor quality program is worse for young people than no program at all. So addressing and increasing the quality based on certain indicators within your program is a very positive thing for youth, but also for the staff that work there. The quality self-assessment tool is scored 1 to 4. 4 is excellent. Some people think that you have to have a 4 across the board, but 3 is meeting the standard. So we encourage you to work towards a 3 in as many indicators as possible. If you are scoring a 2 or a 1, that means that you're seeing this has to be addressed right now, or there's some progress, but more can be made. So a 2 or a 1 may lead you to think this is actionable, this is something that we need to address. This video is not going to get into a lot of details about the scoring and about how to do it, but you can get that information at our website, networkforyouthsuccess.org/QSA. There's a webinar as well as guidance within the tool itself on how to think about scoring and how to approach it. The structure of the tool looks like this. This is from our print copy. You can see that the element, program and activities, is named and defined at the top left. Then there are indicators listed. So for each indicator, you're asked to give it a score, a performance level 1 through 4. There's also columns and rows about when might you improve on this. Is this an urgent thing that we need to think about improving right now? Is this something that's relatively urgent, but maybe it can wait for later this year? Or is this something that's actionable, but we really want to pick our battles and maybe address that down the line next year? Again, if you want more information on how to think about this, visit our website. There's longer webinars about the tool and how to approach it. One thing people don't know about the quality self-assessment tool is that there's guidance for each of the scores. So if you're having trouble looking at a particular indicator, both the spreadsheet version and the print version actually give you suggestions as to what you might think about looking for each score, 1 through 4. So you can see here at performance level 1, there's no formal procedure for arrival and dismissal, but at performance level 3, the site director creates and implements a formal set of arrival and dismissal procedures. So that could include what staff do when they arrive, how they set up, how they break down, as well as how youth are treated and welcomed into the program and how they're dismissed. So if you're stuck on an indicator, there's guidance to help you think through it and to understand clearly what we're looking for with different scores. Some people are familiar with the print version because we've used the print version for many years now, but there are spreadsheets that allow you to do all of this work electronically. So you can quickly email and get results back. The spreadsheets will do the calculation for you and add up all of the data for all of the people participating in the QSA. It also has drop-down menus, so you don't have to remember what you're entering. You can just pick from a list of choices. And even if you are depending on people to still use paper, if you don't have technology access, you can actually use the spreadsheets to quickly tabulate any paper scores and turn them into something that's easy to manage. So let's take a moment right now and look at what those spreadsheets are and how they function. This is the spreadsheet for the QSA 3rd edition. You'll notice that there are multiple tabs at the bottom, but you always want to start at the far left, survey information for this spreadsheet. You'll see that there are 3 options here to fill in the site. Again, the QSA is meant to be done at a site where youth are served, a location where young people are directly served. Then there's a choice for role, and there's a drop-down menu for role. You can choose from student, parent, teacher, frontline staff, admin staff, school leader, funder, or other. These are all potential stakeholders who could participate in this assessment process. Finally, there's a place for date. Note that there's no place for name. We encourage you to keep the data gathering process anonymous, although if you are emailing files back and forth, it is possible for people to know whether you've turned it in or not. But in general, the spreadsheets don't require name, but having a role can be very important in terms of trying to understand and make sense of why people may have voted the way they did in their scores. Once you've entered that information, you can click on the Click Here to Begin button, and it will automatically take you to the next tab with instructions. Now, I want to point out that at the far right and at the bottom, there are sliders. So as you navigate the spreadsheet, make sure that your right slider is at the top and your bottom slider is at the far left, so you're seeing the entire sheet. Sometimes it will take you to different places, but you may be missing some things, or it might just look weird and you're not sure what to do next. But check those sliders to make sure that you're actually seeing the beginning of each tab. It gives you instructions here on how to approach the element and what to do. Then there are links to each part of the element. So you can see that all 11 elements are listed here. And by clicking on any one of them, it will take you to a page that looks very similar to our print version. Here, each of the choices is a drop-down. So for element 1, indicator 1, I can choose whether it's a 1, 2, 3, 4 or not applicable. And the same for plan to improve. I can choose right now, this year, next year, or not applicable. I also want to point out that if you are stuck with any indicator and aren't sure what it means, under performance level, you can view definitions, and that will take you directly to a page where it describes all of the scores for all of the indicators under that element. So all of this is also included in the spreadsheet. So there's no need to have another document open. You can simply go back and forth, and you see there's a link back to where I was in the survey. So then I can pick up where I left off and keep going. Very easy to use. There's another spreadsheet that goes along with the QSA survey, and that is called the QSA Site Compilation 3rd Edition spreadsheet. This spreadsheet allows you to take all of the information from multiple survey spreadsheets and collect them and organize them and present the data back to you. This, I think, is one of the most powerful and best features of using the spreadsheet over using the paper version. There are instructions at the very beginning of this spreadsheet. This is for an administrator. It walks you through how to add the data from each individual spreadsheet. You are essentially copying and pasting data into a file, and then it will showcase each of the totals on its own element page. So here you see a blank version of element 1, and you can see that instead of choosing a performance level, I've got zeros across the board. This is where I would see how many people voted and what they voted for. In a moment, I'll show you what that looks like when it's completed. This is an example of what that report, that page would look like with some data filled in. So you can see here under element 1, indicator 1, I have 3 people who voted for a 3 or competent and 2 people who voted for a 4, so a total of 5 votes. I also see that 3 people thought this was a this year issue or a next year issue, that maybe there's room for improvement, but it's not urgent. You'll also notice that not everyone who voted for performance level voted for plan to improve. That's pretty normal in any sample size. Some people will skip an issue if they're not sure about it, or they may not be able to decide. So that's not necessarily a problem. It's pretty normal for getting results back. One thing that we did not look at on the spreadsheet that comes up is graphs. So the spreadsheet will automatically create visualizations of each indicator showing how people voted. So you can very quickly see where there's a lot of disagreement, like here under indicator 3, 4 people thought it needed improvement and 1 person thought that we were exceeding the standard. So maybe that's worth a discussion. Meanwhile, down here on number 7, we had 4 people who said it was a 3 meeting the standard and 1 who said it was exceeding the standard. So very slight difference of opinion, but it sounds like item 7, we're really doing very well. This can be incredibly helpful in having conversations with people because now all of those numbers, all of that data, those surveys are now visualized and very easy to look at, which makes the interpretation process much easier. We call that process consensus building, and we encourage bringing as many of your stakeholders together as possible to have that discussion where they look at data like this and make sense of it. And I'll tell you more about that process next. Building consensus is bringing people together to discuss the survey data once the QSA tools have been completed and compiled. This is a chance to look at the survey data and start telling the story or making sense of the survey data. What do these numbers mean and what does it tell us about our program, what we're doing well and where we need to improve? This process is an opportunity to respect the experience and the perspective of all the stakeholders who participated. It's a chance to add to the survey data any stories, any hopes, as well as fears or concern to the numbers. This process also builds buy-in towards making any changes down the line. If all of the stakeholders are brought together to review what people think needs to be done, you've already taken the first step towards making changes and improvements because you've gotten everyone together, they've made decisions together, and now they're ready to move forward to act on those decisions. So how do you get a group to come together for consensus? Whether you're working in person or virtually, setting ground rules for dialogue and decision-making is a critical step. Making sure that you capture in writing any ideas, conflicts, or hopes during the process is very helpful. Ensuring all voices are heard during the process really helps to encourage the dialogue. Another thing to consider is setting a clear task or goal. So making sure that you're clear, we are here today to add a consensus score to the existing survey scores. So we are coming to agreement to say, based on this data, we all agree we are at 3 competent, or we are at 2 needs improvement. And now let's talk about what we might do. All of these expectations should be set in advance, and you want to communicate those expectations in multiple ways before the meeting and at the start of the meeting to make sure everyone is clear and on the same page. Now, if I were doing this virtually, meaning I'm working on a video chat only, so using a platform like Zoom, for example, I would make these decisions in order to make it a really good process for all of us. I would only use spreadsheets and I would email those out to everyone. I would collect them ahead of time and compile them into those graphs that you saw earlier. I would want to assess the entire program, so I'd do all 11 elements. Then I would assign small teams to work independently. So maybe I would have 5 people working on element 1, another 5 working on element 2, and we would all work at the same time, but we would all be working separately. In Zoom, you can use breakout rooms so that small groups can have dialogue and share the results together. And then you can bring the group back together periodically just to check in and see how people are doing. Depending on how many people are on your team, you may just want to work on a couple of elements at a time. But I chose in this case to do the entire program, assuming we had enough staff that we could do all 11 elements and have a nice sized group. Remember, I'm not only talking about staff doing this. I'm potentially involving youth, parents, funders, our community partners like school officials or contractors who participate in the program. So I could potentially have quite a few people working together and sharing results. In that case, I would start and end together. And I would do this now in June as a year-end assessment. So given that we're in lockdown in the pandemic still, although some programs are reopening, many of us can't be in the same room, I would set this meeting at a limit of 90 minutes, and I would do 3 rounds of, well, at least 2 rounds, 20 minutes of working in small groups with 10-minute breaks / check-ins periodically. Now, we might not be able to get to all of the elements and finish every single indicator in all the elements in that time, but we could still do quite a bit of work. Another point is you don't have to start at indicator 1 and go all the way to the end of that element. You can pick and choose based on what the data says. Your groups should be empowered to choose which indicators they think need discussion, are the most urgent, and then work from there until they can get as many of the indicators done as possible. How do I even get all of this going? Well, a big part of that is choosing a good leader. So no matter how you do this, virtually or otherwise, choosing a self-assessment leader to manage the process is critical. This person manages the whole process and makes the decisions such as I just showed you on the previous slide. They should also take the quality self-assessment first and sort of have a sense of where the program's strengths might be before they begin. But they will decide who's going to be engaged, how and when it will take place, who will facilitate the discussions. Then how will the data and findings be compiled and shared afterwards? This also helps to ensure the self-assessment process leads to planning and program improvement, which is also the self-assessment leader's responsibility. Now, this can be a site director, but it doesn't have to be. It could be a lead teacher. It could be somebody looking for leadership opportunities. It could be a facilitator or a volunteer from within the organization. That's up to you. The stakeholders who might be involved, if you have an external evaluator, that might be required that they participate. Youth and children that are served in the program can be involved. Program staff, I think, should be involved, including supervisors and site directors. Any parents, guardians, or family members could be stakeholders. School administrators, if you're a school-based program, or if you have ties to the school and are trying to reach academic goals in your program. Any partner organizations, people who are doing drop-in services or who take any sort of ownership of activities or support for the program can also be involved. What you need to do is think critically about who can reasonably participate and how will we involve them. In the scenario I listed earlier, I could have all of these groups submit surveys, but maybe only a few of us are going to be part of that sense-making consensus building. If you are going to involve all stakeholders, then try to at least have a representative from each of those groups in the consensus process if you can, but it may not be possible. This is your process. A lot of these decisions are up to you, and you should feel confident in doing what you think is best and being willing to learn through that process. If you involve multiple stakeholders, one of the things the spreadsheets can do for you is break out how different stakeholder groups showed different votes. So here we can see on the left the aggregate, all of the different scores for 12 different indicators under an element. But on the right, the top shows how parents voted on one particular indicator. And on the bottom, it shows how the frontline staff voted. So this can be really helpful in dividing up the data and seeing maybe the reason there's disagreement is because different stakeholders have different perspectives. They may have an informed perspective, they may not, but that can help in terms of consensus building and figuring out why you might be stuck in a spot or why you might have widely disparate scores. So another reason to use the spreadsheets because it makes breaking out that data very easy. When you introduce this to stakeholders, make sure you introduce the purpose. Clarify why are you getting their input? What do you hope to accomplish? Their time is valuable. Remember, staff and directors and supervisors who are paid by the program are also stakeholders. So make it clear to them up front why we're doing this, why it's important, and what you hope to get from it. Be clear on the why and the what, and a lot of other things will be smoothed later on. As that assessment process wraps up and people have shared their ideas and you've come to new consensus scores, now you're ready to move into planning. Some people will have already started suggesting actions they think the program can take to improve the program, and we have tools to help shape the planning process. Using the notes, the recommendations, and the timelines generated during consensus, that can turn into a plan. Organizing it into a coherent, clear plan is the next stage of the process. Make sure that the goals are SMART, that is, that they are specific, measurable, etc., as well as connecting any professional development to the plan, because training or orientation might be an important quality improvement area. So tying it back to professional development can be really helpful here. Communicate the plan once it's completed with all stakeholders to get their input, feedback, and buy-in on the plan. We have tools that can help you in this part of the process. Our website has action planning templates, both blank and with examples. Our partners at PACE in New York City have a professional development forum to help you organize and find commonalities among the individual development plans of your staff so that you can make sure to hit all the areas that you need to and keep things moving, given that you probably have limited time and a limited budget. We also have sample calendars that can help you think about how will I do this process over the course of the year and integrate it into staff meetings, board meetings, parent meetings, and other events through our year. Again, networkforyouthsuccess.org/QSA has all of those and more. One thing that I would encourage you to look at is a planning form. The Self-Assessment Leader Planning Form asks specific questions of the self-assessment leader to help them clarify the decisions they have to make to move this process forward. It begins with these questions. What elements do you need more knowledge of? How will you find the information you need? What resources do you need to be able to complete the self-assessment? If a self-assessment leader can answer these questions for themselves, then they're going to be ready to answer those questions when other people filling out the form do it for them. This form is on our website and is a free download, and it's a printable sheet so that you can work on paper and write in your own answers to these and other questions that will help with the planning process. For more information about the QSA, visit our website, networkforyouthsuccess.org/QSA. All of these tools are free. They are easily downloadable. We encourage you to use them, and we do not collect any data from this process. So any information put in spreadsheets or entered into the forms does not come back to us. We have other standards if you're interested in other ways to look at your program, including after-school program accreditation for the state of New York and the New York State School-Age Care Credential. All of these are available for free at our website. In closing, if you're going to engage in this process virtually, give yourself time to prepare. Communicate about the entire process with your team and be available to help with technical issues. There are lots of issues with technology if you're trying to do a virtual process. So whatever platform you're using, make sure you have the support during the meeting in order to help everybody stay present and stay focused. Also, take time to ask about the process. Periodically just say, is this working? Are we getting value from this? Are the decisions we made the right decisions in terms of how we're doing this process and who we're involving? Periodically checking in to say, is this assessment working? Is this planning working? Will really help you to improve your process so that you can improve your program. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you'll stay connected with the Network for Youth Success. You can sign up for our listservs at our website. You can join our Power of Three campaign to get advocacy alerts about state and federal issues related to after school, summer, and extended learning. You can follow us on Twitter at NYS Youth Success, and you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/network for youth success.